Horn. All right, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:30 with a roll call, please.
Mr. Simons?
Here.
Mr. Freehan is here. Mr. Boda?
Here.
Mr. Blackstock?
Here.
Mrs. Blair?
Here.
Mr. Horn? Mr. Gonzalez?
Here.
All present. Mr. Simons, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Kathy, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented?
Mr. Chairman, the items number B and D are repetitious.
Yeah.
So
Under new
we can
business.
cancel D then?
Cancel D under new business.
That was a typo error.
I think you want to keep it in that order, though.
What's that?
Approve, you want to cancel, B.
Cancel B and keep D.
The description before you.
Okay, cancel B instead of D, okay. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, is there any other additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? So we need a motion to approve the agenda with the correction of eliminating under new business item B.
So moved.
And we have Mr. Horn and Mr. Freehand. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, we have the approval of the minutes of November 5, 2018. They're in your packet.
I'll make a motion if there's no additions, deletions, and so forth. I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes of November 5th, 2018.
Support.
We have a motion and we have a support to approve the minutes of November 5th, 2018. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, we have public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have number 1, October 2018 Revenue and Expenditure Report. Number 2, we have a cash summary by fund report period ending October 31st, 2018.
If there are no questions, I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
That was Mr. Horn?
Yes. Okay, we have a motion and a support to accept the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have disbursements. We have invoices of $93,356.62. We have accounts payable of $134,329,003. We have payroll direct deposit of $30,465.10. We had EFT payments of $10,482.63. We have a tax account of $10,024.69 for a total disbursement of $278,658.07.
I'll make a motion, we pay the disbursements of $278,658.07.
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion and support to pay the bills in the sum of $278,658.07. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mr. Freehan votes yes. Mr. Boda?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mrs. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion carries. We pay the bills. All right, moving on to new business. We have to reset the date for the 2019 budget public hearing. Our proposed date is 11/27/18 at 7 o'clock, which would be, I believe it's next Tuesday night. We had a little glitch. It didn't get in the paper, so we have to have it in the paper for 7 days, and that gives us enough time by doing it on Tuesday that we can get it in the paper. It'll be in the paper tomorrow. We've called and we can get it in tomorrow. And then it'll run for the 7 days, and if we can come, it'll probably be a short public hearing, and then we'll have a special board meeting to approve the budget directly after.
I apologize for not catching it. We should
Oh,
have, we
yeah.
should have advertised.
You had
it.
enough on your mind with all that election stuff.
Yes, it's one of the things you do need to advertise publicly as possible, the budget.
Yeah. So we need a motion to reset that date, if that's good with everybody, at 11/27.
So move to reset the date for 11/27/18 at 7 PM.
I'll support.
Okay. We have a motion to reset the public hearing and for 11/27/18 at 7 PM here at the Township Hall. Is there any further discussion? Hearing.
27/18, 7 p.m.
Got it? There's no other discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. I guess we should include in that too, that we gotta have our board meeting afterward to approve the budget. Or we make a special motion to do that on top of that? So we're gonna have the public hearing, and then we wanna advertise that we're having a board meeting to approve the budget after the hearing.
That's true.
Or I can just schedule it and notify.
We can schedule, yes.
Yeah,
Is
All right.
it going to be the immediately following?
yes,
Yep, you can set the date and then we can just make sure it gets posted within the 18-hour window.
okay. So I'll just let everybody know on that.
That
So-
just, that we don't have to advertise because it's not a public
Right.
hearing, but we do need to post it, so.
Yeah, we'll post them both, yeah.
But for board members, we're gonna have the public hearing, and we're gonna meet right after to approve it.
Right after, we're all gonna be here. There's no sense in picking another day. We
Okay.
have to have it done by the end of the month.
Okay.
So, okay, moving on to new business, C, approve secretary job descriptions. I guess we are calling it job
No,
descriptions.
we're gonna do B first, authorized recruitment.
Oh, excuse me, I marked it off. I thought we eliminated B,
No, we eliminated D.
We eliminated D.
D, all right. Okay, authorized recruit for a secretary, recruitment for a secretary. Do you want to take that, Cindy?
You eliminated B? Or
That's what I thought we eliminated.
I thought we would talk about the job first.
Okay, so we did eliminate B.
I thought
Okay,
did
and we
D.
kept
I
D.
eliminated them both.
B.
Okay,
It don't matter.
what do you want to do?
We'll eliminate B and we'll keep it as D because the job description is part of the general job descriptions, and then you would approve recruitment for the secretary position based on that job description.
Okay. We can do it either way. So do you want to take the lead on that, authorizing recruitment? No, excuse me. Do the descriptions first, Cindy?
Is there a motion? You wanna-
Well, are we going to, are we changing the job description, or are we just, these are the duties?
It's modified from the one that was presented to the union for the secretary position. There's not.
We're not changing the job description. Okay.
The secretary position is one of the existing in the contract, so this doesn't change that. We have the right to modify duties and descriptions for the contract, so there's.
In
no
writing, right.
modification. Staff has been involved in it the whole time, so we're all on board together, putting things where they make sense logistically and for the office of the clerk. The bulk of the work is gonna be for the office of the clerk.
Okay. So do you want to go over that, or you have it in the,
The one that was presented in the packet slight modification that the clerk had asked, and it's 4.5. He just, I think, added a few more specific details with regard to election materials and ballots and responsibilities there. Other than that, these particular duties were covered by the secretary, as well as some of the office manager, which we have vacated. Essentially, a lot of them are clerk, maybe deputy clerk. That would be at the will of the clerk to decide if that would be the person who could fulfill that role as well. But functionally, it would be mostly clerk functions.
There are a number of items in there that we wanted to have included that are clerically related to the clerk's function that were done by other people in the past and by the office manager. So they need not fall under the purview of a deputy clerk per se, but they are important clerical functions that need to be accomplished by the proposal is that it works best if you have a 40-hour employee that is doing that kind of clerical work related to it. And that includes not only election-related materials, but ongoing voter registration, documentation that has to be maintained. You're constantly, weekly getting materials in, so you have to update that voter registration list on a weekly basis. So there is more that goes on in the clerk's office than just preparing absentee ballots and running an election.
Well, they're the keeper of all the records, so that's where we're really finding we have a glitch.
And also maintaining those records and then disposing of those records, because anything related to a number of the documents that we keep, there is either a county, a state, or a federal requirement to maintain records. And so that falls under the clerk, but it also falls under somebody who then is designated to maintain those records according to federal and state and local statutes.
But this person could very well not be the deputy clerk. Could be and could not be.
Right.
It'll give more stability to the
Right.
township if the person is an employee that's going full-time here, and we should have more continuity as far as if the clerk leaves and appoints a different deputy, we'll have continuity there.
The primary role of the deputy clerk, the way this is described, would be to sign checks in my absence or in the clerk's absence. Sign checks or other documents.
I'll make a motion that we authorize recruitment for a secretary into our front office according to the job description presented.
Support.
Is that what we were doing first, the description, or were we doing the recruitment? I'm confused.
Okay, we eliminated B.
Okay. I'll make a motion, we approve the secretary job description
Yeah,
Okay,
as presented.
Okay, all right.
you have support?
All right, we have a motion and support that we do the approval of the secretary job description and duties. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Now we have the authorized recruitment for the secretary position. As you know, employee 56 moved to the position of utility billing clerk. So now we have an opening at the secretary position, and that's what we'd like to fill now with the descriptions of what we just talked about.
Do you have one that you've already interviewed yet?
We have not. We're asking to put out applications, take applications for that job, put a ad in the paper or whatever we have to do to advertise it.
I'll make a motion that we authorize someone to begin the recruitment of a new secretary.
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to authorize the officer to recruit for the secretary position. Is there any further discussion?
I have one other thing,
Yeah, we already know that.
it's the wrong name.
We know that, yeah. Not there yet. That's the police contract, isn't it?
This is,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're on the wrong one. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We look for another position. All right, moving on to new business item E, St. Clair County Sheriff's Contract. You have the contract before us. We have Under Sheriff Tom Buckley. Do I call you a short timer? Sure. Okay. Okay. Mr. Buckley's getting ready to retire, which he's had a lot of years of service.
Been there for 16 years, that's wonderful.
So, you have the contract before you. I have a couple questions. I don't know if anybody else does, but the contract was kind of hard to read, and they printed off something, or we gave you the old one. So you asked what the old was. A couple questions, Mr. Buckley. In Article 2, or section, now therefore be it agreed as follows. The sheriff's office will make every effort to start the shift in the township. However, there may be instances where the drive time will be included. That's a little bit of a change from the original contract that we are living under now.
What number is that?
Right here on number 2. Down where it says the sheriff's office will make every effort to have the shift. I know at one time we had the officers lived in the township and they took the car home and they didn't have to go. So when they do this, do they have to go to like roll call in the morning and all that, or? How much time are we losing, I guess that's.
You're not really losing anything at all anymore. The previous contract didn't really talk about trying to start the deputy in the township. It just said drive time directly to and from the township will be included in the scheduled shift hours. Once upon a time, the deputy that was assigned to East China took the car home at night. We had to make some changes on that for a bunch of different reasons. It happened about probably 5 years ago. But last year, we started the process. We finished it this year. The car is now parked at China Township Hall, and they built a garage next door, or we finished it. So that's where the car stays. So the deputy starts there every morning at 10 o'clock. So there's no drive time to and from. There may be the occasional time when that deputy calls in sick and we have to have somebody come from the office. We'll fill in with another deputy. That deputy would start at the office and then come to the township. So there might be a 15 or 20 minutes that it takes them to get from the jail on Michigan Road to the township. Just wanted something, the contract to kind of spell that out for those rare times that it does happen.
Do you think we should spell that out instead of saying this, that the car is in China Township? But I mean, you explained now that the only time it would be is if.
Right. Well, I think that our goal is to make, just like it says, to make every effort to have that car start and finish in the township, so there's no drive time to and from the office. However, we didn't want you to get the idea that it's gonna happen every single time. It's just not it's not possible for us to do that every single day. So just to have something in there to kind of explain, if for some reason the car needs to be here at 10:05 and it's not here till 10:15 or 10:20, there's an understanding as to why that happened.
If the deputy had to come from the sheriff's department office, he or she would come and pick up the car in China Township,
Yes,
correct? Okay.
Yes.
So they'd be using that car.
they'd be using that car, yes.
Then my other thing that you just touched on it is the total hours on page 8. Total contract hours would be for 6 hours times 365 days in a year equals 2,190 hours. Now, that's our 6 hours, and then China has 6 hours, so we
Correct.
have a 12-hour coverage.
Yes.
But then, there's an additional 110 hours that we're not paying for, is that what you're saying? And you want to use that for, if a deputy calls in sick,
Well-
we won't have anybody?
We pay a deputy for 2,080 hours a year. So the difference between that 2,080 and the 2,190, which is 6 hours a day. If you remember, when we were having issues with China Township's contract last year, we struck an agreement with them to try and keep some costs down so that we would, what we do is if that 110 hours, if we had a sick call or a vacation day or something happened that day, we would have a 110-hour cushion to not put somebody in the township for that 110 hours a year. That's total between, no, I'm sorry, it's not, it's for East China Township. And that was, again, in an effort to kind of keep the costs low. Short timer now, I can kind of say what I want, can't I? Sheriff had nothing to do with writing this contract, especially last year, when there were major changes to all the contracts. That was done by the administration at the county building. And they went through and they figured out that there was that 110-hour difference that we were never charging for before. So they made it they billed another 110 hours into the contract. And again, when China had their increase, we looked at ways to cut, and that was one way we kind of struck a deal to cut. I believe that they just mirrored that in your township contract.
Okay. And my other questions are, looking back at the old contract under page 5, we never paid for a supervisor. Now we're paying $13,217 for a supervisor.
You did, if you look at, two contracts here.
I'm looking at the 18 contract, 16 to 18 contract we had. It was
Yeah.
under clerical?
He's under administrative costs
Oh, okay,
supervision.
I see it down here
They
now.
moved him from that administrative cost up to personnel cost so that they
Alright.
could capture the fringe benefit costs for that
Okay.
position.
And then there's this training, what is that now, this 600, or $288 for training?
We take our training budget for the entire year, divided by the number of deputies, so that's approximately how much in the budgeted line item for training for each deputy. And that cost is being passed on to all township contracts we have.
So where was it in our last contract, or built into something else?
Probably non-existent. It was a cost that the county ate. At $280.
My other question was, we're talking about a 5.2% increase for the first year and a 2.4% increase for the second year.
Yes.
What's with that? How come it's not even?
Well, you're going to see a larger jump in the first year of this contract because a lot of those costs that had never been
Oh,
put into the contract before. You know, if you look at liability insurance, in 2018, we charged East China Township $1,362 for liability insurance. Next year, we're charging $3,740. It's an extremely large increase. As it's been explained to me, we had not kept up with those changes over the past few years. And not only did we see a large increase from our insurance carrier all in 1 year, we hadn't passed those costs on to the townships ever. They had never been revised, so there's a huge jump this year. So that's why there's a 5.2% increase this year and what'd you say it was, 2 and a
2.4.
2.4?
This was what you went through a year ago with China, right?
Exactly.
Same issues?
Yes.
Coming back to me now. Anybody else have any questions on this?
I just had the same question you did, Larry, because it's been consistent for the last 4 or 5 years, the percentage increase, and then first one like I said, the first year, but then the second year, you go back to the normal rate again where it's been before.
Yeah, essentially what happened is over the last couple of years, contracts as they've come up, the county administration has really gone through everything with a fine tooth comb and tried to recoup every cost that we have. We're charging for Clemis now, which is the records management system that we have at the county. It's something that's never been charged for before. It's just for example. And like I said, they found a few costs that they had never incorporated before. Moving supervisor up to personnel and wages that changes the calculations for all the fringe benefits as well, adds to the cost. So that's why you see a big jump the first year, and then kind of a cost of living jump after that. This should be hopefully the only year you really feel any major pain. Everything else should be pretty much cost of living from here on out.
Now, if we do ratify this, will you send us a hard copy of this contract? Or
Absolutely.
And when you do that, would you change our township clerk has changed from Greg Town to Robert Freehand?
I can do that.
On the supervision cost, is that just a kind of a generic one because the deputy, or the undersheriff, or whoever's working the two townships has a supervisor? There is, obviously that supervisor's doing other things too. So
Right.
Are you just taking a position of a supervisor for X number of deputies and spreading it?
Yeah, there's around 12 deputies per shift when you take everybody into account. We work a 12-hour shift, so theoretically, that person spends about an hour a day. There's really no way to calculate how much time a supervisor spends with or each deputy. So it's kind of just a really kind of a scientific wild guess.
But there is, the deputy here is assigned to a particular, or there is supervision for X number of deputies covering whatever way the sheriff's department sets it up.
Yes.
So you're just allocating it on the
Right.
basis of number of people supervised.
Yes. So the deputy assigned to the township has both a sergeant and lieutenant assigned to his shift. His direct supervisor is a sergeant. That'll be the person that he goes to if he has a question or needs something. It's also the person that reviews all his reports, reviews all his dailies, makes sure he's keeping busy and doing what he's supposed to be doing, he or she is supposed to be doing while they're assigned to the township. So theoretically, they spend about an hour a day going over between reports, reviewing dailies, and making personal contact with that deputy about an hour a day.
Are there any special fees in case of emergency services?
No. There's no charge for detective services, crime scene services, anything like that. If we have to send the special response team in, the SWAT team in for something going on in the township, there's no extra charge for that.
Thank you.
And item 6 on page 2, are we still going to continue with the hours that we have set now? I know we talked about changing them, but we decided to keep them where they're at.
We did talk about changing that. I ran a report for both China and East China Township, looking at all of 17 and year-to-date 18. I did that about a month and a half ago. There were no changes. We still see both China and East China are pretty consistent. The most busiest times of the day, call volume-wise, are between about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning and about midnight. So that 10 to 10 shift is pretty optimal, we think, at this point, for being there at the busiest times of the day when the calls are coming in.
The other question I had is, the county will furnish the township with weekly timesheets. Have we ever done that? I don't remember seeing them. I know we get the quarterly reports.
Yeah, I don't think, that's probably something that should be looked at. I'm sorry, what paragraph is it in? Could you?
Page 2, item 9.
I think that's a kind of a holdover from many years ago, when we had a lot less deputies assigned to contracts. We could do it. It would be pretty time consuming, and I don't know if it's something you really necessarily want or need to go through every week. the quarterly reports come, and they show pretty much all the same data, just in a kind of
Yeah,
a
I mean, this
bigger-
is your
a bigger
contract,
picture.
you presented it to us.
Absolutely did. Absolutely did.
But yet, you corrected yourself and said that the county wrote it, the administration.
Well, I try not to pass the buck, but sometimes when it's
Right.
appropriate, I do.
I guess my big issue is are we as a board comfortable with if a deputy calls in sick that we without protection for a whole shift, which could be possible?
For 110 hours a year. And we track that. We tracked it last year with China Township, through a spreadsheet, so I knew I could go down, in 2 minutes, I could look at the computer and find out how many hours China Township did not have coverage. And you gotta remember, that's also, proactive patrol dedicated to the township. If there is an emergency, we'll definitely send a car. It'll be the closest car. It might be a state police car. It's probably gonna be a sheriff's car that's, as close as possible. So, we could rewrite the contract. I'm sure that the county would want to bill you for that extra 110 hours. But we have
So is this
somebody in
pretty
there.
much split between us and China? I mean, we're basically paying the same thing?
Yes.
Okay.
How many hours were we without patrol in the past? Do you recall that, or do you have anything documented for that?
We'd have to review the last quarterly report I gave you. I'm sorry, I didn't bring a
Okay.
copy with me tonight. You can show, it shows. It's extremely rare, and right now, we don't do it with East China Township. So anytime somebody calls in sick, we put somebody in here for at least 6 hours. In China last year, if we had a sick call and we were running too short, for 6 hours a day, we would not put somebody in their township, so.
Because we were operating under the old
You were
contract,
operating
and
under
they
the old
were
contract.
operating under this new one.
Right.
And there was a year overlap, isn't that what it was now?
Yeah, that's the reason why we presented you with a 2-year contract this time. So when it's up in 2 years from now, you'll be on the same schedule as China Township. So we'll be able to do a 3-year contract. They'll both be exactly the same. The numbers do vary slightly from contract to contract when they're not prepared at the same time, because we go off our historical data for the last year. So things change, gas prices go up, vehicle prices change a little bit, things like that. So that's why there might be a slight difference. Once you guys are on the same schedule with China Township, should be exactly the same, as long as we all agree to,
So if there's a call that is made while this person is not working, it'll just take a longer time to get somebody there.
That's correct.
basically.
The
But
county
somebody-
car will cover it, huh?
Okay.
county or state. If it's an emergency, whatever is the closest car. If it's a non-emergency, if it's a, I don't know.
They could even come in from the cities too, couldn't they?
Yeah, if it's an emergency, we have mutual aid agreements with both Marine City and St. Clair Police Department. So in an event of emergency situation, they will come into the township and help us until we can get there.
On the 110 hours, is that up to 110 hours?
Up to. I think we used the full 110 hours this year with China. But, yeah, we're not going to pull somebody out if in December we've only used up 100 hours. We're not gonna pull somebody out for 10 hours. We're gonna, if it's not used, it's not used. We'll be there.
One other thing I'd like to say, if we do decide to adopt this, and we make a motion to adopt it, I think it should be adopted with the stipulation that we have our legal counsel look at this large of a contract, at least peruse it and see that everything is correct and we're getting what we should be getting. I don't believe we've had that done before. So it's up to the board what we want to do with that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract, 2-year contract with the St. Clair County Sheriff Department with the provision that it meets,
Be reviewed by general counsel.
well, subject to review by general counsel.
I'll second that. I think the sheriff has done an excellent job patrolling our township, and unfortunately, everything does go up.
You need a roll call.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Simons?
Yes?
Mr. Freehands vote yes. Mr. Voda?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mrs. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Patsalos?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. We retain the sheriff. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I will have those two changes that I noted in there made, and I'll have a new copy sent down to you. And then once it's approved by your board, it'll go in front of our Board of Commissioners. I'd like to say I appreciate it. We've always had a really good relationship with East China Township. And since this will be my last meeting with you, I would say that I've always enjoyed coming here and meeting with you gentlemen and lady. We've had a good relationship, and I would like to thank you for all you've done for me at the Sheriff's Department, and goodbye, I guess.
Thank you for all
Good
you've
luck
done
in your
for
other
East
ventures.
China.
I'm not going to sit on the couch. I'm too young for that. I'll be working still, but I'm not planning on leaving the area, so if there's anything that I can do for anybody, I'm still around.
You on call for
All right.
emergencies?
No, that's one thing I am giving up.
Will you fill
Handing
in for
my
those
phone in.
110 hours?
Pardon me?
Will you fill in for those 110 hours?
If I could, I would, but I'm handing in my phone at the end of the month, so
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Tom.
Congratulations. on your
Congratulations.
thank you again. Okay.
Okay, moving on to item F, water meter replacement program, request to purchase meters. Blaine, our DPW supervisor, is here to tell you where we're at and what we're doing.
For several years, the DPW's been updating the water meters throughout the township, getting rid of all the old Badger meters and installing Neptune meters. Currently, we are down to 72 Badgers left in the system. Part of the recommendation from the DEQ in their sanitary survey this year to help find the missing water is to get the rest of the Badger meters replaced. We know there's a problem with them as far as their accuracy. They're older, so they're slowing down, the parts are wearing down, and they're not capturing all the water they should be. To replace the remaining 72 meters, it will cost $19,025. Currently, I am approximately $2,000 over budget on our water meters for the year. In this year's budget, we are relying entirely on the money raised from the meter replacement fund on the water bills to finance all the meters. And it's not enough to get the rest of these meters changed out this year. So I'm asking what the board would like me to do with the remainder of the meters for the year and how to proceed.
Well, you're committed to the DEQ to have these replaced, is what
Yes.
you told them?
Yep, we have to the end of the year. to
And if
get-
we
to
think
get
back to
some
the budget
changed.
year of last year, and the years previous to that, we had a line item in the budget to add to those water meters, above and beyond what we were getting from the meter replacement. And this was the year we decided, when we cut last year's budget, we cut that out, and we were gonna see just where that fell. Well, we found out where it fell. We were putting about $17,000 into that before, and we're getting about 17,000.
Yes.
Well, now we're 19,000 behind, so. I think we should replace these meters, because some of them are, like Blaine said, are slow and some of them may not even be recording.
Yes,
Well,
it
we're
is
still in
possible.
the pits.
Yeah, well, they're not even recording.
So you anticipate that there would be some additional,
It's my meters.
they're not paid entirely for them, but there is lost revenue at this point.
There is lost revenue.
That the rest of the water customers are paying for.
Yeah, we have tested several of these meters that we've taken out to check their accuracy, and they are not even close to where they should be. So we are losing water and revenue with these old meters.
So how would we pay for them between now and the end of the year?
That's
Or
not
is
up to
that
me.
what you're asking us?
That's what I'm asking you guys.
I mean, we have some money in the contingency fund, and we also, have some in the water fund. So I think we could fund them without going into next year's budget. But I think we gotta do it, I mean, and then, I think when we get, later on in the agenda, when we get down to the water rate study, I think you're gonna find, when we look at the big picture, that this water meter replacement, we're getting 225. It's not enough, because the meters, I think that was based on 20 years,
That was
wasn't it?
based on 20 years. The industry standard, what they're recommending now is 12 years for life
So-
expectancy for a meter.
We're not getting, we're getting more like 10, aren't we? 10 to
With
12?
with our new meters, they're holding up fine. It's just these Badgers have been in the system so long, they're way overdue.
And we may have to make such a thing too, as to getting to change these is hard to get in. A lot of them are in houses, so we gotta get into people's houses to do this. So we're gonna have to probably send letters to a lot of these people and pretty much tell them if we don't get it changed, we're gonna have to shut the water off and get in there and change it and then turn it back on. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to be a little more stern with it than we have been in the past.
How long have we been changing these water meters? Blaine, how long has it been?
The township began before I was even with the township, changing out the Badgers. I haven't seen exactly when they
So it's an
started.
ongoing thing. Every
It's
year we're
ongoing,
changing
yes.
water meters pretty much then?
Yep.
Okay.
But this will finish up all the Badgers.
This will finish up
Right, all the Badgers, okay. But still, for the maintenance, we'd have to keep doing it
Yes.
year after year, okay.
Yep, absolutely.
The standard meter is the 3/4 inch meter?
That's
That
the
seems to
most
be the-
common. The 3/4 and 1 inch are the most common. Most of the new homes that are built now are for a 1 inch meter. But the older homes, they're 3/4.
And the commercial, commercial people pay for their own meters.
Yes.
So even at the current rate, if the meter lasts longer, theoretically, we would recoup, even at the current meter charge, we should be close to, along with the money we recover by actually measuring the water that we're providing the customer. So we can't bill these customers based on meters that aren't recording. I mean, that's the only documentation that you have, is what it's recording.
Yes, what the meter reads is my Bible that I go by, and I know these meters aren't reading the way they should.
I'm sure nobody's complaining. However, the rest of the township, the other water customers, as I said before, they're subsidizing it
Yes.
essentially. So in fairness, I think it's appropriate. And you would anticipate that then people would be paying their fair share.
Yes.
And the life expectancy of the new meters are longer than the current meters? the
They're
Badger?
guaranteed accurate to 1 million gallons. So however many years that puts, every home uses a different amount, so that's gonna put that'll put them within 10 years for some years longer, some less. But if moving forward, if we base it all on 12 years, and we're always constantly changing these meters out, we won't be in the situation again where we have a group of meters that aren't up to date. This is just another step in getting to that goal, where everything is up to date and accurate.
Blaine, do you think once we have everything up and running and up to date, that what we're charging right now for the meter charge would be sufficient to handle your budget to continue?
I think you need to change the rate so it's broke down over 12 years of life expectancy. Also, I don't believe that the current rate has ever been adjusted. The rates
Right.
you're charging are for, the cost of a meter 10 years ago or 8 years ago, and they're not up to date. So
Okay.
that should be revisited annually as prices go up.
So we'd have to adjust that, just so,
Yes.
again, okay.
But I think that asset management's looking at that part of it too, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that may be folded
Oh, that
in
might fall, okay.
when we do
okay.
this whole rate structure thing.
We're paying $233 for a 3/4 inch meter. I was just going by
Yes,
the
Yep,
basic.
that's for a complete meter, a body and a radio head.
Is that installation and everything, or?
That doesn't include our time to go and do it, it's just what we have to pay to buy the meters.
And you've got a certain number of these you'll say will be paid for by the customer, so that $19,000 is a
There's
little lower
approximately 10 that are commercial accounts that we would be billing for.
that will be reimbursed for.
Yes.
So I think it's something we have to do. I'll make a motion that we allow Blaine $19,025 to buy new, to change our meters out. Was it 72 you said?
Yes.
72.
Support.
I'll support.
Mr. Bode, you support?
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Everybody knows what we're talking about here? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Patsalos?
Yes.
Mr. Horn? Mrs. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mr. Boda?
Yes.
Freehand votes yes. Mr. Simons?
Yes,
Carried.
motion carries. Now we're moving on to new business G, Project Control Engineering, presentation on a couple of things.
So, just want to say I'm sorry about last meeting, my absence. I had an emergency at home and last minute thing, so. But I think what we were going to start with was the bypass for the pump stations, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
And so, just to give a little background, the determination of where to focus our attention was partly looking at the age of the pump stations, and then the consequence if those stations were to fail, and then also discussing with Blaine some of his experience with the stations and where he felt the highest fragility in the stations were. And we honed in on the two stations that pump across the Bell River, being that those stations are in an area that is environmentally sensitive. And then we did drawdown testing on them after doing our asset management program on the sanitary system, and found that they were running at a very low efficiency, a lot lower than they're supposed to be running. And so that means that they're in a very poor state. And so looking at costs to upgrade all the equipment was quite high, especially with prices for all this equipment being extremely elevated due to everybody doing this across the state. But we know that we need to be able to respond in case there are failures with those stations. And so the force main, which is the pipe that pumps out of the station and goes under the river or across the river, if it's accessible, easily accessible to a company that does bypass pumping, such as the township uses Mercino or has used them in the past, it will reduce the cost to respond to that emergency or that failure and get it back operational. And then that's also something that would be a part of the rehabilitation in the future anyways, because you would want to have an easy way to bypass the station to rehab all the equipment. So if you look at the two stations, it's the last page. I don't know if you have your packet from before, but I made two tables, one for each station. And I guess we could start with let's say we'll start with the one on Meisner Road. The pipe, the force main there is mounted on the bridge. And so the bridge that's crossing the Bell River, I guess, is slated to be replaced in under 2 years. And through discussions, I think there is some question if they would want that mounted back on the bridge or not. Preferably, and I don't think that they were quite aware that it was mounted on the bridge, the road commission, from in discussions with them.
I mean, well, somebody knew, but
Right.
not the people that are there now, probably.
Right, exactly. And so obviously they would prefer it to be to be going under the river and then on its own, basically. And so, which normally entails going under the river. So we felt that was, you know, a new force main is required. We can allow a port of access to that main to bypass the station easily. And also, some other issues that exist at that station is there's a very high risk of flooding. The DPW has to sandbag that station every year due to seasonal flooding of the river. It's in a floodplain, and so we're proposing in this table that we would raise those critical elements to access the station above the floodplain. So that way you'd be able to access the wet well, where you would have a suction pump pull out and connect to the port of the force main that then would go under the Bell River and dump normally into the collection system downstream. So that's what is the major aspects of the cost. I think it's moving towards the rehabilitation of the station. It's eliminating some of the issues related to flooding, so that reduces response times and the risk of failure if there were flooding. And then it allows for a less costly bypass to the direction of, hopefully, the ability in-house to bypass one day. You know, it just involves the purchase of a pump, but that all is.
Don't we rent the pump?
You can do that too. Exactly. So you need to have that ease of response, and then also why, you know, if we're worried that station and then the other station that's on this page are in risk of failure within the next 6 months, then when they have the high season of water where you have the highest flows going through, then you know that you would want to be prepared for that instance. So that's the Meisner one. The Bell River one, which is Springborn.
The Meisner Road, I want to say.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
I've been on the board for quite a few years, and they tried to go under Bell River, and they hit the pier from the old bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't get through. That's why they went up onto the rail.
Yeah.
So you will have trouble if you want to try boring through there.
Right. Well, I have a drilling background myself. I was a geotechnical engineer before I moved to this type of engineering. And, but also I did contact a drilling company, a directional driller, Dulude, and I had them look at it. And so I got their opinion on it, their professional opinion on the feasibility of doing that. And then what would be the consequences if they were to run into obstacles, and the approach that you would want to take to reduce the chances of hitting those obstacles. And so starting from the east side of the river, or north side, I guess, the way that it curves, would reduce those risks, because you have a lot of obstacles on that side. So when you start there, then you have more ability, because it's harder to control where you come out, but you can completely control where you go in.
Well, that old bridge
So,
went on an angle.
correct.
So you got
Yeah.
different piers.
Yeah, and previously when we discussed it, you had mentioned about the old bridge, and so we did a little bit of digging. Now, obviously, we'll pull up more records before we, during our production of drawings for this, and but we looked at the route that the old road took, and the bridge, the way it crossed, and so we feel that you have pretty good confidence that you could make it with the technology that exists today. So that's the other thing.
If they can do it, it'd make it a whole lot better.
Yeah, the technology's really improved as well in drilling. A lot due to, domestic oil and gas and everything. They've produced a lot of new technology there. Yeah, and there's 2 water mains, I believe, that are in the facility, but one is right there. That's a good point. There's a water main that's already been directionally bored through that route.
They had a hard time getting that one through too.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that is definitely probably the main obstacle with that site would be succeeding in getting the force main through, and then you know, giving obviously the best chances for that and avoiding obstacles. Is there any other?
Does everybody understand that we're just talking about putting a bypass around the station, not doing nothing with the station, just the bypass?
Yeah.
Then the station's gonna be another $150,000, huh? Ballpark?
Well, equipment and pipe work and things like that would be the same as our previous station on Urban Drive. The cost of bypassing would be less, the complexity and questions during construction would be reduced. But, yeah, you would need to budget for what we'd spent, the last one we've
We
rehabbed.
put a bypass on Urban Drive.
No, we didn't do any bypass there because of it's 30 feet.
Manholes were so close
Yeah,
together.
30 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really a very simple bypass there. That's the kind of thing you want to have is, you know, very short distance.
But I think with the Meisner Road, you know, we've had that since probably in the 60s,
Yeah,
and we've never had a problem.
yeah,
But
that's
the pipe
very,
is on the side of the bridge, and if we were to have a problem right now, we could lay hoses across the bridge and get there, but Bell River might be a little bit.
what I was gonna say, yeah, the
when we
Bell
go to
River
the Bell
one is
River Station down on Springboard, then we gotta get across the river, either
correct.
lay hoses in the river, which have a chance
Floating,
of
yeah,
failing.
yeah, floating
What's the
crossing.
possibilities of hanging the sewer pipe from the bridge on the front of the decking, just hanging?
The county doesn't mind that, but if we were to, when they take that bridge deck off, they said we would have to concur all the cost associated with that, leaving that pipe, because if they take the whole deck off, what's gonna hold the pipe? They're gonna have to build something to hold the pipe there,
I
either.
was thinking of the framework on the bridge, hanging from the framework.
Yeah, but when they take the bridge off completely, there'll be no framework.
So they're taking not only
Yeah,
the
put
pavement, they're
temporary
taking off
support
the
somehow.
platform.
Yeah, they'll have to temporary, and then you're saying then hang it back on the bridge? Yeah.
You see, the one issue is, I know that, you know, historically you have not experienced any problems in that situation, but you do have a pipe with liquid flowing through it in the freezing conditions. So it'd be hard for us to say that's the way to just do it without provisioning for, you know, to not freeze. You know what I mean? There would need to be something, if it's an above-ground pipe in an area that freezes, you would need to have provisioned in the new design. I mean, as it is now, there's nothing, but as soon as you redesign it, now you gotta bring it up to the standards. So you need to bring it up to the provision against freezing, some way. You know, just to be,
Wayne, what do you think about all this? You got an opinion here?
We do need an easy way to bypass it should something fail. So in this case, we can just lay the hose over the bridge. My biggest concern there is the flooding. Being able to get a trailer and a pump close enough to the station to bypass it when it's flooding, it's very difficult. So at the very least, I'd like to look at a better way to do something like that, to get a pump in there.
And then if both pumps were to get flooded out, we could still manage the sewage with the portable up on the roadside.
When you bore it, are you below frost line, like you're 48 inches, or?
well, depth is variable, so, for example, there's a big difference in the two stations. So the Meisner station, it gets shallow, so when it comes out of the station, it's just below the frost line, and then it goes up. So it's not far from the surface, because it's going up. Its destination is the surface. But with the Springborn Bell River one, it stays deep. It only comes up about 2 feet from the dry pit, so it's about, what did we figure, 10 feet? 10, 12 feet below ground, and the road is only like 3, 4 feet away from the station. So it's deep and it's under the road, and it's doing that because its next step is to go under the river and come out in the woods. And then from there, you have 1,200 feet till you get to a clearing that's on the Urban Drive side that allows access. So you would need to be able to get to that side if you were trying to access any of those manholes there.
But you've got force flow, even though you're still using, in effect, grade the existing sewer grade to some degree.
You mean that outgoing side, the down? Yeah, it's gravity, yes, yep.
But they have the force pumping under the
Yeah,
river.
under the river, yeah.
Yep.
That's why you have the force pump.
So to tap into that force main, the reason that we went with this approach was we looked at tapping into that force main that's on the Bell River Springborn one, but the road and the tearing up of the road and sheeting to prevent the road from coming into the excavation and everything, it was more cost effective to just have a new force main going under to the woods side, to the east side, and then coming back away from the road and all the other utilities that are there. There's a water main through there, there's a gas main through there, all within 3 feet between the road and
So this eliminates
I
any
come back,
interference with
I
that.
start back farther and then I go under those obstacles, and then dump out in the first manhole on the other side.
That's why the length that you're talking about in here is.
Yeah, well, the 1,200 feet is to get to that manhole, you gotta clear a path through there. That's just bush hogging and cleaning it, which I think was in the interest of DPW, because they've got some manholes there that need to be repaired as well. You have an issue of soil erosion around one of them, and so that serves that interest of maintaining that easement, and then also that allows him to bypass that station in case of a failure. So because he can use the other main instead of the original main to pump out of the wet well. So.
And it doesn't do us any good to put a bigger pipe in there because we're restricted on all of our other pipes down line
Yeah.
going to the station.
Right. I think
Chuck, do you have anything to say about this?
No, I just worry about it getting the plant fence on it.
Yeah, the fence, huh? Get to the fence, huh? Okay. Well, I don't know if we're gonna make a decision on this tonight, but this would just be the bid package that we would bid out. These are the items that we would be looking to bid out, is what you're talking about?
Right, it's my engineer's estimate, so it establishes the budget that we would like to work with, and then we would produce, if that's what you want us to do, is to produce documents that get bids, bid request for contractors. Do we need to prepare the bid documents?
Is there pretty good interest these days by contractors in bidding?
It's hard, especially there are certain times of the year when they book themselves for the year, and so it's quite tough to find interest because of the economy. You would be able to probably get a few bids so that you would, and you could obviously open it to everyone, but you almost have to make sure that you can get enough bids by soliciting them, saying, will you please bid on this? This is a project that needs to get done for the township, and get enough bids going to have a competitive bid process. So, but it's
Your estimated costs then are just based on general rule of thumb? Or
no,
not the current
I
bidding
invited
situation?
contractors out, different contractors out to look at the project and provide me a bid, and they both provided me written
Okay.
estimations.
So
But
that's-
we'd still have to do bidding.
Yes,
for
you
the
still-
Of course, yeah,
Okay, so
but
you
that
have some,
establishes the guidelines, yeah.
you've had some
Oh, yeah.
input from contractors?
Yep, 2 local contractors, yeah.
Now, bid documents, is that the prints?
Yeah, well, you'd have your contract book that we prepare, and then there would be some drawings. This would have some drawings. And then there is, in both surveys of what's existing, including what's existing utility-wise, and then there is some part of that that has to do with the any research into different easements or legal descriptions that are existing. And then for the project itself, we would need to have more than likely a permit, the DEQ permit. So we would prepare that permit
You got
application.
permits up at the top for 3,500.
Yeah, exactly.
Bid documents are 6,200.
Yeah, that would be separate.
seems like.
You have road commission, MDEQ, and the county, I believe, health department.
Is there a cost savings if we were to do both of these at the same time, or do that?
Yeah, well, what
I
I've
thought
been
it was
told,
of individual projects.
yeah, what I've been told by the directional drillers is the type of equipment that would be mobilized down there it would be cost beneficial to do them both. It would be tough because it's a little bit heavier equipment to do those.
Is that
Those
reflective
crossings.
in your budget estimates, or is that?
Yeah, well, I assume that we would have to do them both
Okay.
in order to achieve the budget, because then they can just say whatever, it's busy, or there's a higher mobilization cost, or whatever.
Larry, I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the size of the pipe can only be a specific size because of the after. How about for future expansion or development down there? We don't need to.
Doesn't help us, right?
Yeah, this is a forced pipe, so, in gravity pipe, the size can really determine the capacity. But 6-inch, which is what we're talking about here, is a pipe that can handle quite a decent amount of flow. And, the amount of, it would affect not just downstream size of capacity, but also how much capacity the pumps can actually handle. So there's quite a lot of things that would change in order for the pipe to need to be a bigger size. 6-inch would handle a lot of flow. I mean, that's a good size.
We could put another 100 houses on that?
With a 6-inch wouldn't stop you.
Yeah,
But, the size of the
downstream on
pumps and
Urban Drive and all that would stop us.
you would have to look at the downstream gravity line as well, and if it can convey that much, yeah. But there's a lot of factors in the capacity. And more than likely, what I've seen in the region is that your influent and infiltration, so the amount of illicit flow that's getting in there, if reductions take place, you're opening your capacity up, and you will be doing that as you're rehabilitating your system,
But not on a major degree, though, not to take.
It would be in increments, yeah. But that does help in capacity growth by reducing your
You agree with
illicit
that,
flows.
Blaine? We can handle more? Putting you on the spot.
At this time, no, we can't handle more.
You need to reduce.
Urban Drive can keep up with the new pumps, but the pipes in the ground can't handle it. Point Drive can't handle more flow, those pumps are pretty much maxed out.
So that's what Anthony's saying, you'd have to do it in stages. In the big picture, when you got it all done, it'd all be new and you would have, a little bit more capacity, but.
That's right.
I mean, if we were to build this high school out here and
Yeah.
we put in a big school out there, how much sewage is that gonna take? 2,000 kids.
What's Anchor Bay? Isn't that about that size? Anchor Bay High School?
They're more than that.
They're more than that? Yeah, and they run through that pump station off of Beathway. That's about 120 GPM, I believe. So it doesn't take a lot to handle that type of flow because the reduced REUs, it's not like a house. So there's a reduction due to the temporary nature of occupancy. But I would just say that Anchor Bay High School, which is probably what he's saying is bigger than that, is a 120 GPM station. And so
How big a pipe
this
does
one's
that go
100,
to,
I
mean?
believe.
That goes what, down county line then, or?
It goes, no, it goes to Beathway. It goes to the
Beathway.
woods behind the high school and then comes down that direction. So surprisingly, don't know
Well,
why.
it's up to the board what they wanna do. I don't wanna spend all night on this, and this is just one, two things that he started with. I think this is something that we're gonna have to either have a committee or do something to think about what we wanna do with this. I mean, these are big ticket items that after we just,
Yeah,
So what you're saying is you may very well have to, you put one line in a certain diameter, and then perhaps a year later, you're gonna chop up the new road surface, dig down, take that pipe out, and put another one that's 2 inches bigger in diameter? Is that what you're talking about doing?
no. I think they're referring to the, down Urban Drive, downstream, the gravity system. These are all under pressure, under a small amount of pressure, but they're force mains that are pumped flow. And so pump flow diameters can handle, a 6-inch, for example, can handle quite a lot of range of flows, in the hundreds of GPMs, which you'll never have in those two locations. You just don't have that growth. Not in 20 years you wouldn't have, unless something major happens there, but that's not even in your master plan, so,
If I could help with that, Anthony,
yeah.
also understand that these pumps don't run 24 hours a day.
they may only run 4 or 5 hours a day. So if you're adding more flow upstream of that location, all you're gonna do is prolong the runtime of the pumps. The wet wells will fill up a little bit faster, they'll come on a little bit more frequently throughout the day, and you'll still discharge the same amount of flow, but a larger capacity. Now, like Blaine was mentioning a moment ago, that, you know, some of the system cannot handle any more flow, okay? That's because of the gravity diameter and the flow of the water in the gravity mains. Those flow 24/7, they never stop. And they may slow down at brief periods, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, but they're carrying the same flow at all times. Once you start adding to that flow, maybe through this pump station by, say, a school build or whatever, you're gonna increase that flow downstream in those systems that he's a little bit worried about. So you'd have to start maybe, you know, considering what you would need to do with those mains. But the 6-inch main is the diameter of the 6-inch main. It's not gonna have to be changed for a very long time, way beyond most of us anyways. So it's not the force main diameter that you need to be concerned about going from maybe a 6-inch to an 8-inch 10 years from now. That's not gonna happen. The 6-inch will be in service for a very long time and handle almost anything you can put through it, just remembering that the pumps are gonna run longer as you add to the system above it.
Okay.
So I don't know if that helped at all with that,
Yeah.
Question.
All
One
right.
thing you gotta take into consideration too is inflow infiltration. And right now Blaine has an aggressive program to try to eliminate that extra water in the spring and rainfalls and,
Well, we seen it in the spring, and the river overflowing, and then,
you got pipes coming apart underground that have to be repaired, and that's, you know, your next item on the agenda.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
Has to be addressed too. That's gonna make that capacity go down too,
I agree.
or requirement.
All right, so I think we've covered the 2 lift stations. Let's
Move to the
look
next
at
one.
the,
Do you want me to start it, or?
Yeah, go ahead and start.
the Point Drive sewer. Is that what you're gonna do next?
Yeah, and Bill's here because, he did this inspection. So, he's that NASCO inspector that, in these pictures, in the picture report. And, so he can talk a little bit about, the condition. But, basically, Blaine brought that to our attention that, you know, we knew about the issues last spring with Point Drive and the response, the emergency response needed to be done. And so, we wanted to address what we consider to be the most critical in that stretch, given that the time and the cost, obviously, to address it is excessive. So, we ended up honing in on a section where we had quite a few broken service lines, and we reviewed the sewer inspection footage and determined that, and that's what these photos are. We determined that there was a total of 7, I believe, broken taps, different degrees of breaking, and so the location of that main is on this map right here in your packet. And so, as you can see, it's between the houses and the river. It's 8 feet below ground. The water is 2 feet below ground, so it's 6 feet below the level of the river. And obviously, that's a very difficult area to reach in order to do any kind of repairs. Previously, in order to make it to the previous meeting timeframe, we were able to get together in time the cost for a trenchless solution, which because we have to obviously go and contact companies that specialize in that and get their pricing, and these aren't things that we can really just estimate from a table. We need to verify with the contractors. And so we were able to get that, but we did not have enough time for last meeting's deadline or agenda to get a comparative or to have any kind of question answering on this project. But obviously now we've been able to give you some more background. I wrote down some questions based on, I think you had some questions that you had raised last meeting. So I don't know, do you want to take over on the questions? And so that's the last page.
I'm Bill Meldrum, by the way. You know, these questions kind of came to us in an about way from the last meeting that some of the board members were asking. And I'm going to roll through them rather quickly because I think most of you have reviewed them a little bit yourself. Is the repair permanent? Well, the repair on a sewer line, even a new sewer replacement, we all know isn't permanent as forever, but these products are designed and built around a 50-year lifespan. Anthony, if you want to show them that sample real quick about that, with that liner, and let them look at that real quick while I continue on. And I've contacted different suppliers of this material on how long that they will last. The question also came up, why are they breaking? The existing one's breaking. And there's several factors that could be involved that are unknown, but some of the things that we've come across over many years of working in the business is that, first of all, poor backfill material is usually your biggest problem. Maybe poor bedding. That could have been due to the fact of its location. It was probably hard to get stone back in there to bed this pipe properly. Shifting from the seawall, the ice pressure on the seawall shifts that soil. And then we've also got its age. I mean, it's installed in 1959 and it's clay crock pipe. And it's a little bit deep and it's sitting constantly in wet soil conditions below the water table. Yeah, and a lot of pressure put on it, on that seawall. So that seawall moves. It's 27.5 feet away from the seawall at almost 9 feet deep. I think all along Point Drive in that, we'll call it the front yard area of those properties, is going to be a problem. The whole strip of it's going to be a problem. Blaine has addressed and repaired many of these by doing in-house excavations and doing repairs to some of these taps. But even those repairs was very hard for him to get to because of existing house footings, decks, docks, seawall tiebacks, a lot of problems back in that area. Would it be cheaper if it was a bigger project? Not necessarily because of the location. If you decided to line and replace the entire Point Drive system, the per foot cost probably isn't going to change by much. You're going to save some mobilization fees and stuff like that, but the per foot cost really isn't going to change that much because the easier the location, if this was a manhole out in the middle of a street and they can pull up to and just drop their equipment in and get it taken care of and they're done in a day, that's going to be a lot cheaper than what we're going to experience with this Point Drive issue. So that's the biggest factor is the accessibility. How are the costs compared to conventional excavation? So we got another quote to do it with traditional excavation. Biggest problem there is going to be they're going to have to try to avoid seawall tiebacks. Last thing you want to do is break one of those. They're also going to have issues with water table, right? Being that close to the river. They'll have to dispose of all the soil, which quite possibly one of the remedies for that is it'll have to be barged out. We're going to have easement problems because I'm not certain what the easement width where the sanitary main's at currently. And to access that easement with an excavator that can actually dig a hole 9 feet deep, we're going to have to be very cautious on how we get that excavator in there. Between two houses, you don't want to disrupt anybody's foundation, so we're going to have to span that. Will we be able to bring it in by barge? Maybe. Same thing with the stone bedding. They'll have to be, well, more than likely have to come in by barge. But there's those type of unknowns that we're not certain of yet because we haven't been able to do the full investigation to apply it to our estimate yet.
So I'll just say that in preparing the estimate, you see that compares, so the open cut method for replacement, the scenario that we envisioned that would be the least impact to the residents is to construct a parallel line between the existing line and the river, so that you could then, you'd have that put in before you would disconnect your residents, so that the downtime, especially if you're trying to do this quickly during the holiday season, would be less. And so you would individually be able to tie each one back in, each residence back in, into the new line that's already constructed. Now, that's how I generated that. Now, in that number, it's also assuming that we can access from the road, from the south side of that segment through somebody's residence, an actual address where I felt it was the most, it's an older driveway, you would probably need to give that person a new driveway, because the trucks and everything, and it's already an older driveway, so you have to consider the restoration costs accessing by land. I would prefer to have had in your table and have access by water, but I didn't get those numbers till this afternoon from Malcolm Marine. And so, they're out, in the river there, so it took them time to get back to me. But they did get back to me today. And so on that line item for the open cut cost, we had a $14,000 line item, I believe it was, which is the costs in accessing, 14,150, accessing it, and that involves land access. So if you were to, and then we have no idea of the legal description of that easement to determine if that needs to be adjusted, and then is there any costs associated with that, with the residents, because they would then want to negotiate, what they're, for doing that. So if you were to avoid that and try to do things by the water, you still need to look at that easement where the sewer line is, how wide is it, and what's the description of it, and then how does that encompass the new line that you need to construct, and any land you would need for debris or stockage of material. And then if you were to access by barge, Malcolm gave me a price of $2,500 round trip for the barge that can handle 200 yards. So that $14,000 would be replaced by a $34,000 cost to bring the equipment on from water and to remove the material, bringing in new infill and new pipe. And then, everything would come in from the water side. That's just an estimated cost that I came up with, just to give you an idea of it is possible to come in from the water side, but it would be potentially more costly than coming in from the land. But if the land was no longer an option, or if the easement didn't allow it, you may only have the water side if you're trying to open trench.
Well, if you had the water side, you still gotta go onto the people's property, because their easement doesn't go to the river.
Still gotta do that.
Right. And that restoration cost
Why
is
would
there
you
too.
even think of going from the water? I would think you'd wanna come from land and,
Oh, preferably.
And procuring the temporary easement, that would be something we'd have to approach a resident on to.
we have easements that come off of Point Drive that go to the easement, correct, Blaine?
No.
We don't?
Only by a little road in the north of the Point.
That's why I say that comes from the road into the easement.
In the north of the Point Drive Bridge, his house is all the way up from the bridge to Merrill.
There is none?
No, there's no easement there.
Okay.
Getting a temporary easement from a resident it's not typically a difficult task. The thing is that you're gonna have to agree with them on some certain terms for them to grant you that temporary
Well, I
easement.
mean, I'm looking at your
Yeah.
restoration allowance for landscape, sidewalks, trees, et cetera, $5,000. We just paid $40,000 just to rake the yards up.
And, which
I don't think that's-
one, is that under the,
I think they're the same for either option.
Is that only for, so this estimate's only for those 7 houses then from manhole 60 to 61?
that's
what
total,
that estimate
yes, and it's total replacement of the main from those 2 manholes and the laterals.
Oh, so you're only gonna have one place that you're gonna go in, that'll be only one restoration, so then maybe it is.
Yeah, we'd have access from one temporary easement into the zone between those 2 manholes. And then the equipment would spread out from there. They would all enter in the same spot, but they would do their thing out
Do they
between
have to
those
drive
leads.
between these two manholes, the equipment?
Yeah, yes.
Total replacement, yes.
Yes.
Trenchless, no.
Yes.
Trenchless, they just need to enter one,
One side, well, both sides.
Well, they have to enter both manholes in the trenchless also, but they would be using, like a side-by-side little dumping thing that they would have all their equipment in. They would drive all that down to one end, and then at this end, they'd have all their bigger equipment set up at this end, and that's where they do their main work from, but they gotta be able to pull all this stuff into the main, expand it, let it cure, move into another process where they'd reinstate the laterals, would be the same process, only a little bit smaller scale after the main line's done. It would take a total of approximately 3 weeks to complete, but don't be mistaken by that, it's not every day. The first process would be to come in and clean and
just
videotape
clean 'em
everything. Yeah, but they're gonna come in and they'll clean them, and they're gonna run up into the laterals, and they're gonna video and clean all those and get them prepped. Then, after they do their measurements and stuff, this stuff is made to order. So they've got a bunch of measurements, they send that back, manufacturer sends it to them within 5 days. That material gets delivered to them on that 5th day, they're gonna come back out and they're gonna line the main line. And they'll reinstate all because they cover up the laterals at that point, they have to reinstate those by cutting the holes back into it. That takes a full day just for that process. Then they pull out, and another branch of the company will come in a few days later, within a week, and they're gonna take up to a week to put all new lead attachments going up into the leads and repairing those leads and
how
letting those
far up
cure.
are they going?
We have it based at 5 feet. Some of them will have to be adjusted depending on how damaged and how far up they are. Okay, so.
So you're gonna camera the leads? then?
Yep, they'll camera and video the leads, and they will give us a recommendation on how, we did our estimate of all of them being 5 feet long. That's kind of typical. Some of them may go to 8 feet. We just experienced, we were going 20 and we had to go to 32, which, we had to pay the extra cost for the material. We allot for a little bit of contingency for that.
Yeah, the material cost definitely.
Is this weather related too? I mean, we seem to find that when we worked down there in February, we made a lot less tracks and damage when it's froze than we.
And I've talked to them about that, if this was a process that they could perform during the winter, and they said yes. The thing is that this, most of this curing process is done by ambient temperature. They can steam cure it, which is a lot faster, but it's also a lot more expensive. But ambient temperature takes about 3 hours, 3.5 hours for it to cure and to a specific hardness, and then it's workable from there. It takes a full 24 hours for it to completely cure, but it's all done by ambient temperature once it's exposed to
The ambient
oxygen.
temperature wouldn't change that much 9 feet down, would it?
Well, you'd be surprised. That's probably going to be with the warmer water that typically runs through the sewer. You're going to probably have 55 to 58 degree temperatures at that depth. So, and it's consistent, right? So, and it's a timed heat activated kind of thing. The resins are impregnated with, help me with that, another solution that activates, a polymer that activates the process. It brings it up to a high temperature, but that's what softens everything, makes it form fit everything. Once that temperature starts to decrease and it cools, as it's cooling, it hardens. That cooling time takes about 3.5 hours.
What's the warranty on this?
What's that?
Is there a warranty? You said 50 years?
At my request for a warranty answer, it was our products are designed, when installed properly, are designed to last 50 years. So that was my response. I haven't gotten, the full wise man's talk on, boil this down, is there a warranty for 50 years? Is it guaranteed for 50 years?
What we want structurally is 40 years. That's the EPA's norm in asset management, that pipe is good for at least 40 years.
How many players are there in this game of doing this fiberglass stuff?
So that what I passed around is actually a felt material, and so that is proprietary to one manufacturer who has several installers. So you would need to open that up to northern Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan to have multiple
Bidders.
installers, but you could do that. It's just you need to open it up to allow more people who stay in their territories, if you will. I mean, they're allowed to go install in other territories, but they're from originally those.
I've discussed this project with a team from Detroit, a team from Grand Rapids, a team from Indiana, and a team from Toledo. So I've discussed this project, among others, with these same groups, and we've actually used one out of Grand Rapids, and they did a great job. The project turned out very well in New Baltimore, and I can provide you with what these taps looked like after they were repaired and before, so I can forward that information on to you, Larry, by email, and you can pass it on. Blaine, I think I've already discussed and shown him some pictures of it, and you know, this stuff works really good. This is not new technology. This has been around for a very, very long time. In situ form was one of the very first ones to come up with it. And I recall that being done in Algonac. There was several mains that were done in Algonac that were in horrible shape that had to be 1990, 92. So this technology's been around. It's just gotten better. It's gotten stronger. It's gotten hydrophilic, which is, you know, forces water away instead of allows water to creep in. So I mean, this is not new by any, and I also want you to know that I'm not selling this product. I am here working for you, wanting to help you make a solid decision on the best way to try and approach this repair. Blaine came to us as asking us to help him find the critical spot that is going to cause some trouble soon. We don't know if it's tomorrow or if it's, you know, 2 years from now. The problem is that you have some costs of failure if you don't repair it. The cost of failure increases because you affect everything upstream. If that main something was to happen to that main, the cost of the repair is going to go up because now you got to bypass from way up there, the main shut down. The people don't have anywhere for facility, right? Because we had a main collapse. That's the last thing that we can expose ourselves to in this kind of situation. So if you want to have it traditionally excavated, fine, I'm fine with that. We'll help design a way to do it. If you want to go to this trenchless technology, I think it's way less intrusive. I think it's going to be a better solution for this situation. And you know, Blaine and I, we've reviewed a lot of video together, and we talked about this in depth. And this is absolutely the worst piece of pipe in that section. And we really don't want to see what happened last year, where he was running around with his head cut off trying to get all these repairs done and keep sewer flowing.
How big is the total section?
What's
I
that?
mean, you said this is the worst part of the section. How long is it that we're talking the total section of it?
Well, this section's 357 feet, I think, 344
I
feet.
think at the last meeting, somebody said that the whole thing's a mile,
Would you say that, Blaine?
approximately a
Yeah.
mile.
Yeah.
But you haven't reviewed what the condition is for the rest of,
It's all been camera looked at. This was a spot where there was multiple bad taps. And some of them didn't have as many bad taps, but had more joints leaking.
but you did, I know we talked at the meeting about economies of scale and the third, breaking it up into
Right.
third and 1 mile, that sort of thing. But what you're saying is essentially this is the worst part. And there would be really no great benefit to do larger than this. There's no economy of scale.
Not economically priced per foot. I mean, we can design this project to do, you know, maybe we can sit down with Blaine and figure out which other section it would be considered our next most critical, and combine them. And then you could get, you know, 2 or 3 sections done and repair maybe 21 house leads, right? It kind of depends on how big of the scale you want to go, because the prices that we're going to see, even out to bid, these prices aren't going to move very much. I just from having the conversations
No,
with
but what I was saying
contractors,
was that you said early on
Uh-huh.
that to go from 328 feet or whatever it was to a mile, or a third of a mile, to include some more that aren't as critical would not necessarily save any money. It would be just maybe good long-range planning or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But
I
we're not
get
going to
where you're
save,
going, yeah.
we're not going to cut the cost in half by doubling the size.
No, no, absolutely not. And if you revert back to the photo, the two pins are where the manholes are at. Okay, but if you see these other yellow pins that are off in the distance here, I've already pinned and tagged all the ones that Blaine's gone out and repaired. The addresses are the ones that he's already dug up and repaired. You only see a couple of them here, but if this was blown up further down this way, there's probably 6 or 8 more down in here that he's already repaired right on the river. So this area is beginning to fail. Even in my pipeline inspection training, they tell you may see a crack in a pipe, but that crack might be there for 10 years, but it might be there for 10 minutes. It's not for me to say how long these are going to hold. All I can do is tell you what their condition are today, and we can assess that, and try to have a plan to repair them. And also, Mr. Bailey here just recently mentioned that, the infiltration portion. I'm not even, considering what's wrong with the infiltration portion of this segment. The segment's one manhole to another manhole, right? So barring the fact that we're gonna repair all these leads, now you're gonna eliminate a bunch of I&I that you're having issues with. So if we keep staying focused on doing things and we get this one out of the way, we can start planning and have it so you can budget it. Instead of looking at this like an emergency or an urgent situation, we need to get you in a position where you're planning for these things, not unexpectedly getting us coming here and saying, hey, listen, we got a real bad problem here. We need to start budgeting this stuff.
On that basis, you would be looking at, for the whole mile, approximately a mile, about $1.5 million on the basis of the 95,000 to do the lining.
They're less expensive.
Yeah.
Usually you don't have this one you're pulling out everything. So you're lining it, you're doing, every tap gets a new lateral. You normally don't have to do all that. This was a particular one where everything had to be done. So, and really when we approached it, we didn't think we would need to line it. But when we saw that the situation was that every single tap almost had to have that done, then it didn't make sense to not line it at that time. The additional cost to line it prior to putting those T repairs, was minor compared to the fact that if you would need to line it later, then it would affect your previous repair. So we didn't want to do that. If we do a repair, we didn't want it to then become an issue that you need to do lining later, When it gets to a certain point, and that's the NASCO standard for inspection, quick rates though, so it puts it within a numbering system, 1 through 6. And the higher the number is, the worse off it is, and I believe these are in the 5 or 6. And so it means that there's so many defects that are happening in that that 5 or 6 says that it's not gonna last a year according to the NASCO standard, but then also that increases the cost because you're deploying all these different repair techniques. Where normally a segment wouldn't need all that. You might have 2 repairs or 2 joint repairs that are inexpensive. You wouldn't have to fully line it and do a T-liner for every lateral. That's extreme.
I wasn't trying to exaggerate. I was just saying, almost like a worst-case scenario, if we wanted to do the whole line, when you talk about long-range planning, just to give an idea of, budgeting, if you were to budget over a long.
I can touch on that a little bit, but take into consideration, we talked about access being everything. I went to a pilot project in Manistee, very similar community, riverfront, cold, wet, a lot of water, very old pipe, just like yours. $400,000, bought them 16 manhole segment linings, 6 manhole linings, and 58 laterals for $400,000. I don't know if we did some numbers to figure out if that was close to what we got on Point Drive, but now we got to add in that factor of accessibility. It's going to be a little bit harder to access, so there's going to be a higher cost because of that. but that was a pilot program that they did. They've now gone into approving a $4.5 million project, doing this exact same thing for their whole town. Well, over a course of 20 years or something like that, but they're in the process of proving that.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at, is if we look at, as we're looking at replacements of water lines and sewer lines and things like that, from a long-range standpoint, what you're saying is that with the lining project, there's not really an economy of scale. So if we were to do the whole 1 mile, let's say, I was just estimating, the worst-case scenario, if we were to bond it out or something like that for a number of these projects, worst-case scenario, not access, but lining it, based on the 95,000, it would work out to about $1.5 million to do the whole mile.
Yeah, and we can do better than that in terms of the estimated cost. I think on the next agenda item is inspection and, long-term plans for inspection. And so what we did in this case was we took that company's inspection reports. There is a report they can produce from their software that gives our quick rating. We take that and we plug it into we have a spreadsheet that then produces the costs based on what type of repair it is. So it's just the next step on. And so then we produce that spreadsheet that tells you you have this many joint repairs, this many T-liners, associated costs with them, and then a total at the bottom.
That would be good information to have.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, absolutely.
We've done some of it already on Point Track.
And I think the focus needs to stay on the urgent side of this for just this one segment. But I think what you're asking is something that we should look into and try and get something that's a little bit more broad scale and get that whole segment, that whole Point Drive area, with some kind of budget, in some kind of budgeted way where you guys are planning for that.
Yeah, that was my point.
Yeah, use this as your pilot to make sure this is exactly how you're expecting it to go, so you can use it later on and plan for it in the future.
But by doing that.
Yes, yes.
So go on.
I'm sorry.
As we perform the asset management on the sewer lines, we're gonna start tomorrow. That's gonna tell us what we can afford and what we're gonna look at in the future. So, yeah, that information will be.
Yeah. It'd save us a lot of, instead of just guessing.
I'm sorry, Ms. Catherine?
Oh, I have a question for you. Besides equipment going up and down our residents' front yard, will their day-to-day life be impacted during this repair? Will their
Very minimal
toilets not
on
work?
this one, very minimal. They're gonna look at probably 7, 8, 9, they're probably gonna have 9 days where they're gonna have people, construction workers all up and down their yard constantly, got a 4-wheeler going by, pulling different equipment back and forth, and yeah, their lawn's gonna get torn up a little bit, but they're not gonna break concrete, they're not gonna destroy docks and decks and tiebacks, right? So they're gonna have this visual thing going on, but their interruption of service is gonna be limited to the cure time for their lead only. So if they have an interruption, say, on the pipeline cure of 3 hours, they can't use their facilities, then the next time somebody comes out to line theirs, there's another 3 hours they're gonna have to not use their facilities. So they're only gonna have brief interruptions and not a full-scale shutdown of their system.
That was my question. Thank you.
Going back to the reasons why this is happening, are you fully comfortable placing this system in a pipe that is moving?
Great question.
I mean,
And here's, this is all seamless, right? So you don't have all the joints that are moving and loosening up. Plus, this product has to be manufactured to be as structurally integral, it has as much structural integrity as the host pipe. So if it's clay crock pipe, brand new piece, that has to be every bit as strong as or stronger than that pipe that it's replacing. So when it's going, and its shear strength is a lot stronger than clay crock.
So settlement of the joint, continued settlement of the old pipe's not going to shear.
As a matter of fact, I
off.
think it's gonna help support it.
Okay.
Well, a good,
Yes,
that M29 crossing, that we had
Yes.
McDonald's, that was a perfect example. that pipe was completely gone, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep,
And they in situ formed it from one side to the other. You know, reformed the whole pipe, that was 27 years?
yep, yep. There's a large interceptor crossing.
On M29, continual basis. And if I'm not mistaken, it's still
Yep,
a brand new.
And it shouldn't affect the taps, it shouldn't pull away from those Y taps at all,
If I'm
if
not
that pipe
mistaken,
settles.
The new tap will adhere to the inside of the new lining. And it'll bond with that, because they're like products, right? And they have a special bonding agent that goes to it to adhere it, and it holds it up into that as it extends up and winds around. And that's another thing, is this thing can handle 45-degree bends. That's why they camera it, so that they can see those bends. They measure the lengths of them, and they make these felt liners specifically for that bend. So if your address is 123 Market Street, there's gonna be a kit that's gonna have your address on it, and it's designed specifically for yours. I can't use it on 124, but I can use it on yours.
Now, will that just do the 6-inch riser? Will that go into the 4-inch?
It can convert to the 4-inch. We have to know how long of the 6 is and where it converts to 4, and it'll make that transition when
That's
they,
what
when
we're
they
seeing, where
produce
they-
it.
The 4s go into the 6 or are leaking too, aren't they?
For the most part, Brad.
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken,
Yes,
there's a
sir.
short section of that done years ago on the west side of Point Drive at the south end.
That's interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, we did see that on the video.
Well, I guess in
And
closure, I don't want to spend all night on this
Mr.
subject
Pitsalis
here.
had a quick question. Sorry.
Again, I was just trying to piggyback on what Bob was saying.
Oh, okay.
I just can't believe that if we're doing a longer project, I understand this is the important part, as a board, our goal is to make sure that we fix all of Point Drive and get it all done. So, I mean, as far as a budget and how we want to go about it, I just can't see that there's not going to be a larger savings to do a bigger spur, a bigger portion to run it more. And that's, you're saying the cost wouldn't be that much to come back, and if we have to run 300, right now, we're doing, 328 feet. If we're, next
Yes.
year, if we find an emergency further down, you're saying if you come back, it's not gonna be that big of a savings if we don't take care of it right now. Is that correct, or?
And he's saying we might not have to line the whole section, the whole piece too. Isn't that what you said?
If the integrity of the existing main is there, which it is not in this segment, joints are leaking bad, cracks everywhere. If you are only doing the laterals, then yeah, it would be obviously considerably cheaper, $19,000-$20,000 cheaper, because that's basically the cost of lining of the pipe. I guess I want to make sure I understand your question wholly. If we weren't going to do this project, say tomorrow, right, and we set it into a budget so you could do it next year.
No, I'm saying if we make this project bigger, instead of 320 feet, if we make it 600 feet.
Okay,
Okay? What you're saying is the savings wouldn't be that great to go 600 feet if you had to come back later on to run the other 300 feet. You know what I mean?
What you could do, you could say is if you increase the scale of the project, you could deploy certain technologies you wouldn't be able to deploy on a small project, such as steam curing. On a bigger project, you would be able to, not having to have that, I think, $7,500 cost in cleaning, in the cleanouts, because, you'll get a company that would be able to do them blind, potentially.
Okay.
They'd have that technology, because the steam curing controls the curing. So the steam prevents it from curing too fast, and then it cures in the wrong position.
Okay.
So that, you would be able to deploy these control technologies, and you definitely would be able to hit, different, timeframes. So fast, it'd be faster, or there'd be maybe some savings in clean out, but still you'd be working between the water and the houses. You'd still have to come with that technology from wherever they're from for that period of time. If it's 1 week they're here, or if it's 3 weeks they're here, you're still gonna charge you for the per diem and the whole thing. So you're really not, yeah, if it was like 1 tap, or if it was 2 tap, yeah, because that would be like 2 days. So you have all that cost associated with it, but it's enough of a size, 7 I think it is, that you'd be able to complete that in a week period, so the per diem is still there.
Okay.
Mr. Broda?
if you're looking at a long-term solution, that's what we're all kind of looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got the old sewer system. I live down on Point Drive.
Okay.
On the riverside. And when we have the floods, a lot of time that system gets filled up full of river water.
Yeah.
And what would be a difference in taking those pipes out that are cracked or whatever you say they are, they're not in the best of shape?
Yes.
Why wouldn't they put them on a, say, relocate them out to the road where most sewer lines go? Instead of this silly in between the house and the river's edge.
You said
I
put a
always
new
thought
line
that
in.
was kind of asinine.
I'm understanding what you're saying, and, just kind of thinking up in here. It would be totally redesigning the direction of the flow. You have the houses sit so far away from the existing nearest line that's actually out on Point Drive. There would be.
We're talking a new pipe and all this kind of
Yeah,
stuff. Would
yeah,
be a heck of a lot better condition than trying to salvage these things that are.
I
falling
see
apart
where
for
you're going with that.
60 years.
Mm-hmm. And we'd have, yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely doable. I think we'd have to do some major research on to figuring out if we can get that elevation of gravity feed to that main without coming out of the ground. You get what I'm saying? Because the further you get away from it. So we'd have to do some topo studies and we'd have to do some elevation studies for our inverts and our
Yeah, and you dig down 4 or 5 feet, you got water sitting there. If it's not there, it's coming in after a while.
yes.
It
There's
just
a
seems to
reason
me
it's
it makes
9
more
feet
sense
That's,
following a road than it does following along the river. That's
I kind
a
of,
silly ass way of doing it.
I kind of like your idea a little bit. If you want us to explore that, we certainly can explore that to see if it's
Maybe you can think
feasible.
about that, huh? Well, let's continue on here. I don't
Yeah,
want to spend all
yeah,
night.
yeah,
Is
no,
that
I'm
the
sorry
end
I
of
took
your
up so much of your
presentation
time.
for
I
right now?
appreciate it.
I think we need to digest what you've given us,
Yes.
at least I do. Does the rest of the board feel like that, or? I don't, I know we want to talk to the Asset Management Committee, and see what their plans are. Maybe this could be something, or at the next meeting or two, we can make a decision if we want to do this 300 and some feet. I thank you for
Thank you for the
staying here this
presentation
late
and
and getting this
everything.
all
Thank
done. With that, I'd like to move on to, where are we at here? New business H, Michigan Pipe Inspection Incorporate proposal to video inspect and clean for 2018 and 19.
I got two proposals for cammering work, sewer cleaning and cammering work for the remainder of this year over on Meisner Road. And then a proposal for next year to pick up and work on North Lawn, Clover Lawn, Shady Lane, that area of the township. In 2008, the township began pipe sewer main cleaning and cammering. Once we get these two sections done, we would be done up to Recor Road. Everything south of Recor Road would have been cleaned and cameraed. Right now, the guidelines that the DEQ is saying is every 10 years, you need to have your lines cleaned and cameraed. So essentially, after 10 years, we're about halfway through. So I think it's really important that we stay on this stuff. We keep getting the projects done, keep moving along. There's a lot of problems out there that we're gonna come across, and we may find some areas that aren't as bad as we think, but we need to just keep moving along. And these are the next two areas on the list that we need to get tackled.
So you're asking, the 2018, we have the money in the budget for that.
We do have the money in the infiltration
2018,
budget,
so
yes.
You're looking for authorization to do that portion of it?
Yes.
For the 18? Which is, how much is that?
21,000,
21?
26, 2380.
So we want to handle these one at a time? And Blaine's right, this is something we've been allotting between 75 and 100,000, as long as I've been here to do this cammering, and we've got a lot of it done.
What I feel has been a big holdup to the whole project, though, is that we've done a lot of the grouting repair work out of the same fund. So we can only camera so much and then put a lot more money into the repairs.
And when we
instead
find
of just
major repairs,
cameraing.
we fix those.
Yes,
Because if we find something really big, I mean, we gotta get it fixed right away, and we have found those,
oh, yes,
The price competitive?
yes.
yeah.
And we've got the 21,000 on the budget for this year?
Yeah, we have that in the line item, I believe, to do that.
I'll make a motion that we award for the 2018 year to Michigan Pipe Inspection, the amount of $21,623.80 for continued video inspection and cleaning.
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a support. Is there any further discussion? Everybody knows what we're talking about, the 2018, this year's budget, which money we've set aside. If there's no further conversation, we'll have a roll call, please.
Mr. Boda?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mrs. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Patsalas?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
And Freehands votes yes.
Now we'll move on to the 19 part, which do you have something, Anthony?
No, I just, there was one item left, I'm not reading.
Oh,
I'll wait till that.
oh, okay, all right,
Yeah, we did.
okay. So now we're gonna look at the 19, which I believe we set 100,000 in the budget for that.
Yes, I wasn't sure if you could approve now for next year's work or not until the budget's approved for next year. If not, that's the area that I'll be focusing on next is
Yeah,
that
I
project
think we really should
specified.
wait till we adopt that budget
Okay.
before we do the 19 part of it, but what do you think, Cindy? Yea or nay?
Yeah, I think when we put it on, we assumed maybe we would be.
Yeah. I mean, we actually approved this cost from the 18, we're just authorizing you now to do it, so.
So it's just likely just put it in right
Yeah, the next, after the budget.
Okay.
Okay? What did you have, Anthony, left?
Yeah, it was,
If you look at your cover sheet for, his presentation, there was.
About the $37,000 one?
There was an urban, pumpstation contract negotiations with the
I didn't know if you had any questions that I should answer.
That's the approval of finishing up payment on our
Yeah.
Urban Drive lift station.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually requires action.
Yeah. Well, we've already approved this, we're just,
Okay.
we've approved it, but I think we'll make a motion to expend that money now. At 37,000, isn't it? $37,434. And that's what I called on the other day, was this net change orders, which was $3,342. That doesn't include the sump pump part of it, it's just the wiring and the things that Blaine authorized. So, and I checked with Corinne, and we did make the previous payment of $83,700. So we owe a total of $37,434 to pay up that Urban Drive lift station, which we've allotted that money for.
So move
I'll support.
Okay,
to
We have a-
authorize, the payment of $37,434.
correct. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Everybody knows what we're talking about? Roll call, please.
Freehands votes yes. Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mr. Boda?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mrs. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Patsalas?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. We pay that bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep. See next
Thank you
time.
very much.
I know.
Next, moving on, we have MWEA training event attendance that Dwayne would like to go to. Are you going to that, Chuck, or just, this is for the water? Just water? Okay. I believe it was
That's the one Sandy Smith was going to, wasn't it?
what's that?
Sandy Smith was taking care of that one for us, watershed.
No, this ain't watershed. Well, yeah, she was doing the watershed, right, I agree, yeah. Now, Dwayne has taken that over, so he would like to have some training in that, and this is a class. It's $135 plus his expenses. It'll be It's just a day trip, I believe, so there won't be no, he'll go in the morning and come back. It's in Lansing.
I would make a motion to send Dwayne Loper to the Watershed and Stormwater Seminar in Lansing for a price, or not to exceed $135 and expenses.
Who supported it?
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to let Dwayne attend this training event for the watershed. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Freehand votes yes. Mr. Boda?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Ms. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Petsalas?
Yes.
Motion carries, we allow him to attend. Moving on to new business J, it's the ECT Water Rate Study Committee update. I don't know who's presenting that. Is Herb?
I can't.
Herb gonna do it? Okay.
That's fine. The committee's met numerous times, two times, to work towards our asset management plan on the water side so far. A lot of work has been done. Dwayne's done, and he's done a very good job putting that together with everybody's help, Dwayne and everybody. So, I'm hoping, we made a decision that before we went through with water rate increases, if we need them, we're going to look at the sewer side because the two are so closely related. So we're going to start that tomorrow. And the plan was, I believe, before the end of the year, we're going to have a recommendation for this board in terms of water and sewer increases. We've asked for kind of the abbreviated version so that you'll better understand the asset management plan itself. The program that they're using is very, very in-depth. We could spend an entire meeting going over it, so we've asked Dwayne to kind of bring that down into one clean package showing what our recommendations are. In a nutshell, the state's mandating this, we've known that. And the goal is to have our water and as well as our sewer be a self-sufficient entity. Whatever it's costing us in total cost to produce water should be covered by our rates. And that's going to be what our goal is determine what that rate should be. So hopefully by the end of the year, we should come to this board again with water and sewer rates.
Are you still thinking maybe about having a little workshop before we have a presentation, or you're just gonna do your presentation? What?
We could, I think we're going to meet again. We could probably
I
kind of.
mean, not
bring the-
everybody might not be able to attend, but maybe some can, and get a little bit more education on what you're.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're
talking
planning on a couple of meetings once we
Let's
start
not
working
forget
with
the
sewer.
water and sewer's an enterprise fund. They cannot make a profit.
about. We're not making a profit, we're just trying to get up to breaking
I
even.
understand, but it's an enterprise fund.
Basically,
You
the idea
can't.
is to cover production,
Right.
water line replacements, hydrants, sewer line replacements.
Sewer lines.
And what they're talking about today, over the next,
20 years.
I won't be here,
I mean, I'm 50 years maybe.
but, yeah.
We could probably have a seminar. We could probably
Okay, well,
couple it with our
whatever,
meetings.
you guys are doing a great job. If you're gonna just present it, and then we'll,
I think, and from the water side, I think we're we probably could have come to this board, either this meeting or the next, with a recommendation. I think our committee's comfortable enough for that.
okay.
But we wanted to wait until we had a full picture with the sewer, so.
Okay, thank you, Herb. I see, and,
Beautification commission.
okay, next, is that all you had, Herb?
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have a decision regarding the beautification committee. Larry, I guess all I want to do is report on that. I talked to Kathy, she was on the beautification committee. She said they voted to dissolve the beautification committee. So we've not put anything in the budget for the beautification committee. It'll still be a line item for, I believe, 3 years. So if we get another group that wants to do that, we can reactivate it. we didn't move that money anyplace else, we just are leaving it blank for right now. But there'll be monies that we could take if we need to have, you know, the township hall do something or put some flowers or something like that.
So the money's staying in the beautification committee right now, which is being just put on a shelf, basically?
Correct, yeah, we didn't allot any budget number to that.
So nothing's going in the budget for a park on that.
It's not, that was
No.
the proposal that was going to the park.
Do you want it to go to the park? I don't know. I mean, I haven't got no issues, you know, nobody's told me what they need or what they're gonna do, or they're gonna plant flowers, or, I have no idea. I mean,
Well, they've done something out in the front here already, this year.
they didn't do that, no.
Who did that?
Pamela Moore in the office. You know, did a nice job on it. I mean, she was coordinating with the beautification committee. I think she talked to you, didn't she, Kathy?
She just said, asked us if we cared, and we said, we're happy you'd
Yeah.
like to do it. We got the trees and the shrubs in, but
Yeah.
she,
Because it's all volunteer work. I mean, well, you know, Don, you sat on it. I mean, they've done a great job, and everybody's busy, and it's hard to get people to serve on that. But I'm not saying we can't get somebody to serve on that in the future, so.
Well, I'm sure and hope we could, but is there any decisions that the beautification committee made before you disbanded as to what to do with what leftover funds you had?
we spent it on, a lot of it on shrubs and trees and landscaping, mulching, and there's a couple dollars left.
That'll just go into their fund balance for the general fund, and then we can't transfer without an amendment, I don't believe. Can't move money from one department to the other without amending it. That's all I had to report on that. So next, we got
You got Cindy's asking.
Got what? Oh,
I think the beautification commission has done a wonderful job. I think we appreciate everything they've done. It's too bad it's, you know, kind of going by the wayside. They've made a lot of improvements in our parks and in the township and the cemetery everywhere. And I think, we appreciate everything that the beautification commission has done.
I think as a board, we're hopeful that it does come back again,
Right.
but again, it's just hard to get volunteers, and anybody that would like to volunteer, I mean, we'd like to start that organization back up
Correct.
again.
Some of the discussion that's gone on is that, there's certain things in the parks that they did, you know, like took care of Rivera Park as far as doing a lot of trimming and cutting down,
Right.
vines, that sort of thing. That the park commission will end up taking some of that over. So, you know, I think that's what all the discussion's kind of done from, how much is gonna become our responsibility, you know, that sort of thing. So just so, you know, not that we need the money now or, you know,
Right.
whatever, but as we go on, there might be more
I
discussion.
mean,
about
beautification
it.
didn't have a real big budget.
No,
I
I
mean,
know
it
they
wasn't
didn't.
Yeah,
gigantic.
and that's why it was a lot
Yeah.
volunteer is what it was,
Yes,
so, yes,
exactly. That's exactly what it was.
yes.
But I mean, if there's a need for it, then I think this board will approve whatever we need to.
Right,
Right,
If we need to have the DPW do the trimming up there for you,
correct,
or the park will take care of it themselves.
right.
And as far as buying flowers or whatever, they haven't done that much of it, have they, Kathy? No.
We were never looking for that money to come from beautification to the park budget. You know, it was just that there's gonna be more things that become our responsibility.
right.
Okay,
But you're saying, Larry, that the line item's gonna stay in the budget?
I believe the line item's still in the budget, but we
If you wanted to
didn't fund it.
reactivate the
Correct.
beautification commission.
It stays in
That's
there
good.
for
It's
like
right
3
there.
years.
For at least 3 years.
All the legwork is done, it just makes reopening it again.
All right, so moving on to new business L, appoint Fred Babel to the Park Commission.
If he is willing to do it, like we said, we're willing to look for any volunteers we can get, anybody to join our boards. I'll make a motion that we appoint Fred Babel to the Park Commission.
Okay, we have a motion and we have support to appoint Fred Babel to the Park Commission. He's also on the Historical Commission. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor
Is that,
signify.
is that with a term of office?
Oh, yeah, it
park
would probably
commission?
be until 2020, wouldn't it? You probably should include that in the motion. Good catch, Bob. That would be the remaining of the term. Does everybody understand that? He'll be on until the 2020 elections?
Yes.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, new business M, appoint Carrie Ann Kotz to the Board of Review. This is another important board that we have to fill, and it's,
She's
we've
present,
got almost all new people on that now.
she's presently on the Historical Commission right now.
Right.
I make that motion that we appoint Karen Cost to the Board of Review.
I would support that.
Okay, we have a motion and a support to appoint Carrie Ann Kotz to the Board of Review. Is there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we're moving down to Resolution 05, 2018, St. Clair Fire Authority. Mr. Boda, do you want to explain this, or do you want me to?
You want me to read it or just?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Well, I'll give a little explanation. What this is we're extending our agreement with the fire authority, which expires, I believe, in 2027. And the reason we're extending this, I think I talked to you about this before, is if we want to buy a vehicle, a fire truck or something and have to finance it, we can't get no financing if we're only going to be in place for like 7 years. We can't get 7 or 8 years, and we want to take a 15-year loan out. So that's why we're extending it. And there's a couple little typographical errors, and they've cleaned those up. We had the attorneys do this. Mr. Boda and I sat on that committee. And we think it's good, so I'll let Mr. Boda read the resolution.
Okay, resolution 05-2018, St. Clair Area Fire Authority. A resolution approving and authorizing administration to execute the proposed First Amendment and extension of the St. Clair Area Fire Authority intergovernmental agreement of June 20th, 2002. A resolution of the Township Board of East China Township adopted at a regular meeting of said Township Board held at East China Township Hall located at 5111 River Road, East China, Michigan, on the 19th day of November 2018 at 7:30 p.m. Whereas the Township of East China, Townships of St. Clair, China, and City of St. Clair, the municipalities, entered into an intergovernmental agreement on June 20th, 2002 to create the St. Clair Area Fire Authority to provide the municipalities with fire and emergency response services, and whereas the IGA is scheduled to expire on June 20th, 2027. Whereas the IGA contains several typographical errors, and whereas the SCAFA Board wishes to extend the term of the IGA by 25 years so that it expires on June 20th, 2052, and to connect the above referenced minor typographical errors contained in the original IGA, and whereas the SCAFA Board has proposed a First Amendment and extension of the IGA, the amendment, to accomplish those goals, and has submitted it for approval by the governing bodies of the municipalities. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township Board of East China Township approves the amendment to the IGA as presented and authorizes administration to execute same in furtherance of the resolution. And I give resolution number 05-018.
Okay. Everybody understand the resolution? If so, I guess roll call on this.
I gotta get the second first.
Yeah, we need a
I'll
second.
support.
Blackstock says.
All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. I guess we're not spending money, so we can just do, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution, I should say. So next we have Resolution 06, 2018, amend the 2018 budget. Anybody want to read that one?
I'll read it.
Okay.
You have a resolution amending the 2018 budget. It's whereas, as a result of unanticipated changes in expenditures, it's necessary to modify the aforesaid budget. And whereas there is a legitimate need for the amendment of the 2018 budget due to unforeseen changes in the expenditures. And whereas the East China Township Board has reviewed the need to amend the 2018 budget, and therefore be it resolved, the East China Township Board of Trustees approves the resolution to amend the 2018 budget as attached. And all resolutions and parts of this resolution, insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution, be and the same hereby are rescinded.
Okay. And you see there's an attached sheet here that tells what we're doing. We're amending it by $27,283. So,
So I make a motion that we adopt the resolution.
do we have any, do we have a support?
Support.
Herb?
Then you can have discussion.
We have a motion and a support. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Freehand, yes, votes yes. Mr. Simons?
Yes?
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mrs. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Patsalos?
Yes.
Mr. Boda?
Yes.
All
Motion
yes.
carries. Thank you. Next, moving on to announcements. The only thing I have is that it's be Thanksgiving weekend, and we will be closed. I hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving weekend. Moving on to more board member comments, Mr. Horn.
I'd like to congratulate the Marine City football team. They've done a very good job. They just cut just a little bit short,
Yeah,
but go Mariners. And I'd like to have the residents have a happy and safe Thanksgiving holiday.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Mr. Passalis?
I just want to echo the same thing as Don just said. I think the football team had an outstanding year. One game short of going to Ford Field, and I think they exceeded all expectations that we had. And congratulations to the boys. They played very well, and happy Thanksgiving to all the residents.
Mr. Boda?
Okay, same thing for the football team, and I hope everyone has a good holiday. I do have one other item. I'd like to congratulate Bob Freehan for his outstanding work that he did on his past election. You got to be the clerk and you walked into a hornet's nest. So, the way it was handled, I think he did a great job.
We had more voters than we had in the 2014 midterms. We had 1,925 voters, which is almost as many as we had in the 2016 presidential election.
Okay, thanks, Don. Mr. Freehan?
And that was my comment.
Oh, okay. Mr. Blackstock?
Congratulations to Mariner football. I mean, good job. And everyone have a safe and happy Turkey Day.
Okay, Kathy?
Happy Thanksgiving.
And I'd say happy Thanksgiving and congratulations to that football team. I can't wait for next year. I think it's gonna be pretty exciting next year. So they did a good job. They played hard. There's some big kids out there in those other teams. I mean, it's amazing. And the next thing I want to do is, Cindy, do you have comments that you want to make, or did you have a report, or did?
So I'll do my reports at the first meeting of the month.
Okay, so we won't have one now.
Midstream, but I did want to mention that we are looking at possibly structuring an oversight committee for the DPD project. So if you have any input or thoughts on that, the reason is it. And another area of interest for me is to look a little more at structuring a building department per se, with sort of an overarching responsibility that the building official would have typically, and some responsibility with administration and the other inspectors.
Okay,
So next meeting, I'll probably be presenting those thoughts.
all right. Thank you. Then all you had then, thank you. With that, I guess a motion to adjourn. This is like a record-setting meeting for me here. Never had one this long, but, yeah. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion on the adjourn at looks like 9:49.
Moved and supported that we adjourn at 9:49. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned. Thank you.